Hello, everyone, and welcome to Hope. Today, I have my friend Glenn Murray on here. Hi, Glenn. How are you today?
I am wonderful. I finally made stories of hope. I can retire peacefully now.
There you go. Finally. Anyways, you guys, Glenn, I met, I always say, like how the universe, God, however you want to look at it, puts people in my life. I think it was a couple years ago. I don't know. I came across you on Facebook somehow.
Yeah, just on Facebook. Yeah, I don't even remember now I guess it has been a couple of years, hasn't it?
Yeah, I think so. And so I started following Glenn, and then I noticed that Glenn was a publisher, and among other things he's got a wine crawl and he does all kinds of things, very busy person. But as many of you know, I had thought about writing a book. People tell me all the time, and I know everybody tells everybody. So I just kind of followed him and things like that. Well, through this, we have become friends. Glenn has referred so many people to Hope that I've interviewed. It's been really cool. Like, I didn't know any of these people. And then I hear their story, like the book behind you, Faith, Failure, and Success. And I've interviewed 3 or 4 people from that book. And I have a couple more on the books, to interview. So, and then he has the other book, Lessons of a Little Boy.
Lessons for the Little Boy. Yep.
Yeah. Lessons for the Little Boy.
Yeah, I think you've interviewed quite a few people from that book too.
I have. And so it's just been a really great journey. So for those of you that don't know what Hope is, this is my podcast and my YouTube channel, helping other people evolve. And what my vision and mission here is just to help people that are struggling to get to a strength, to know that they don't struggle alone in this world. I feel like so many people feel they're at home all by themselves going through a struggle. And unfortunately, most of the people that I've interviewed have been through a struggle, but fortunately, they've gotten to a strength. So what I found, and it's been so amazing, is when people are sharing their stories, Glenn, is it's actually helping the people sharing their stories, but then other people message me and they're like, I walked out of my house today and I haven't done that in 10 days because I heard somebody's story. So that's what my vision and mission is, to do that with Hope. And I know with you, your books, I mean, that's what your books are. It's the stories, So I don't really know a lot about your story, your personal hope story, but I'm pretty sure, because you're in the book and you're in a couple books, that you have a good story of hope. So I don't know, you want to just start out maybe like your childhood or wherever you want to start, Glenn.
Sure. So I'm originally from the South. So I grew up in a little town called West Memphis, which sits right on the Tennessee-Arkansas border. So that's where I'm from. Very poor town, still pretty poor. I went back there this past year and it looked kind of the same as it did when I left many years ago. But coming up, we talk about publishing, but I've always been an avid reader. Books were always of interest to me. I've been reading probably books I shouldn't have read at a young age, and they just really helped develop my view of the world and made me just want to grow and gain more knowledge. So learning to read early and reading just a huge amount of literature, a huge amount of just anything I could get my hands on really shaped my view of the world and really helped me kind of gain that quest for more knowledge. As I grew, I ended up moving to Chicago some 20 years ago now and just working there. And I started a small business working with my family. They had an art business. So my stepfather at the time was an artist who paints, he draws, still does, extremely talented artist. And my mom would help him. So I helped them to promote their art business. And my background, I should back up, my background was always marketing. So I had been working in marketing for corporate America, doing a lot of different things, but I always wanted to kind of do my own business as well. So I tried to figure out a way. So art was the first thing I did. A lot of people don't know that. So I started an art business called Creations with a good friend of mine named Andrea Stamps, long time ago. And we would have art shows probably quarterly in Chicago. And that's really was my first venture into just getting into business and trying to create something for myself. And it was always around the arts. I was interested in the arts, music, literature, art, whatever it is. From there, a good friend I worked with, her name was Carla Curtis, who actually I became her publisher last year. I think she was on your show too, right?
She's been on my show twice.
That's right. So yeah. So
no,
Carla,
anyways.
Yeah, so Carla wrote the Single Mother book. So the book we just re-released this year, she was kind of the first author that I helped to market the book. I didn't publish the book because then there was no 220 publishing at the time. It was 220 nothing at the time. And but she wanted to promote her book. She had just written it. And I was like, hey, we should just try to create something around the arts and have you come out and talk about your book. So we created an event called Authors and Artists, which actually turned out to be really cool. We recruited 4 or 5 different writers to come talk, and we had an art show around it. So it was almost like a little mini festival of art and literature. So I did that for like 5 years straight. We had those once a year. Turned out really good. We had some well-known best-selling art authors there. Janice Kearney, who you may not have heard of, but she actually worked in the Clinton White House, and she was Bill Clinton's diarist, and she was one of the speakers. Omar Tyree, who's a million-selling New York Times best-selling author, he was a speaker at one of the events as well. So it went really, really well. But I kind of had gotten tired of events, and or at least that kind of event. So I looked to do something different, and publishing was the different that I found. Yanni Brown, who I don't think you've talked to yet, but
I haven't
probably
yet.
will soon. I need to introduce you to her. That reminds me. Definitely need to introduce you to her. She was my first author. She and I were friends. She would have these events called intimate discussions at her loft in downtown Chicago. And we would always have conversations, and she'd be like, hey, what's a better way to get my name out there? And I was like, you should write a book. You're a relationship expert. You should really position yourself that way. Her book became my first book. Fast forward to 10 years, 12 years now, and 50 some books later, and we have 220 Publishing. We've accomplished quite a bit. I'm very proud of all of the books we've published, but mostly really helping people tell their story. And that's really what it became about for me. There were so many people with wonderful stories and very emotional stories. And I learned later in life, and I'll talk about that, writing really is amazing therapy for you. And you probably know that already. I've read your story. And just the way you wrote it, it was like sitting down, having like talking to you right now, or sitting down, having a conversation with you. But it's amazing therapy. It really helps you heal. It helps you resolve, and it helps you grow.
Right.
And I felt like if I can help people do one of those 3 things and allowing them to publish their story, then I've accomplished something.
Right.
So, we did that. So probably about 5 years into it, I won't say I got bored with publishing, but I needed something else to do. And I had always done events. So 220 Communications was created as an events company.
Okay.
So that's really, really what we did. So I was looking for new events. I was doing fundraisers and things like that. So I went to Napa and saw these wine tours, limo-driven wine tours around Napa Valley, which is an amazing trip. If you've never been to Napa Valley, it's a great place to go just for the sight, just for the visuals, because it's so beautiful, the hills and everything in Northern California. But I was like, wow, wine tours. Okay, this is cool. I live in Chicago. It's a bunch of wine bars there. I should try this and just see what happens. So I was like, okay, it's kind of like a beer crawl, but it's not a beer crawl. It's not your father's beer crawl. It's more like a wine crawl. And that's where the idea for wine crawl came from. So we started that maybe 6, 7 years ago now, probably 7. The first 3 I did sold out, and I would do them like in the season, spring, summer, fall, but just great time. So that really grew. So by year 3 or 4, I had branched out, and I did a few. I did one in Indianapolis, one in Atlanta, one in Dallas, and then I started to expand and look at ways that I could actually scale it without me having to do every one of them.
Right.
So I looked at franchising it out. So as of today, we have franchisees in DC, Raleigh, Birmingham, Atlanta, Chicago.
Wow.
And we're looking to expand to Texas and some other places. We did have a franchisee in Dallas, but they got really busy. So we're looking to grow again in Dallas and Houston and some other places. And we also go to Napa once or twice a year.
Wow.
Of course, with COVID, we didn't do that. So it took a little hiatus, but we're back. We're back and stronger than ever before. So that was business number 2. Business number 3 was totally by accident, though. And Keisha, Keisha Rose. So I knew Keisha from acting. We met through a mutual friend, June Hollingsworth, who you'll get to know well, who hosts the show Purpose. So you'll be talking to her very soon. So June introduced us. Keisha was acting, and June thought I could help her with her career. At the time, I was living in Atlanta. I'd lived there for a couple of years. And she we talked and everything. And I had an author, Marcy Batiste, another one who's on your show. This is like a reference for everybody's been on
Right,
your
it
show.
is.
But Marcy had a book and someone had asked her for a screenplay. And she came to me, she's like, somebody really wants a screenplay of this book. And it's a really good book. Love Miscarriage is a really, really good love story. And I'm like, well, I don't know what I'm doing with that. You should ask Keisha. She's written, she's produced, so I knew she would know who to go to or would be able to help her. So I paired the two of them together and they were going to write and they were like, hey, you should come write with us. And I'm like, I don't know what I'm doing. But we ended up writing and, a couple of weekends, like literally falling asleep, spending 24 hours almost in my living room. The three of us came up with a script for Love Miscarriage. So, which has really gotten, we got something called script coverage done on it and it really got good reviews on it. So, we're hoping, fingers crossed, we can do something with that very soon. But that gave birth to the whole G Rose Productions thing. So business number 3, like I needed another business, but hey, it was fun. And I got to write, which is something I think I was a closet writer.
Right.
I had contributed to a book maybe 6-7 years ago called The Entrepreneur Within You. I wrote one chapter in there on building business relationships. And I kind of put the pen down. I wasn't writing anymore. I decided I wasn't going to write anymore. And I didn't actually know what I wanted to do with publishing. I didn't know if I was done. I was frustrated. It wasn't as successful as I wanted it to be. But I measured success from a very different lens than I do today.
Right.
Than I did 3 or 4 years ago. So, a lot happened to make me want to write. So I guess, as you talk about stories of hope, one of the biggest things that happened to me was losing my mom. So I lost her to cancer. April 11th will make 6 years. Yeah, April 11th will make 6 years. I lose track of it now, but 2016. So really tough because I grew up, I'm her only son. So that was a big part of it. She was one of my biggest inspirations to start a business. And moms, they tell you you're going to be great even when you don't feel great, when you don't look great, you don't think about greatness. They see greatness when you never even when it never appeals to you. So she had recently divorced and she had moved in with me, and probably within a year she got diagnosed with lung cancer. So, and it was stage 4 lung cancer, and she had never smoked. 20% of all lung cancer cases are with people who have never smoked a day in their life, and she hadn't. So it was tough. It was tough, and it was advanced. So there's chemo, there's radiation, there were trips to the doctor, trips to the emergency room, all of that. But I wouldn't have traded it in any way, shape, or form, because it's an honor to be able to take care of your parents.
Right.
They took care of you, and you're able to take care of them. So 2016, April 11th, she passed away. Important because April 11th is 3 days before my birthday. So talk about something that's seared in your memory forever.
Yes.
It's that. So she left me with a lot of lessons, but that period, I'd say between 2016, after that I moved. I had a lot going on that year. 2016, I got laid off of a job. I ended a long-term relationship, and my mother passed away, all within a 9-month period of time. So I was pretty much as low as I could go. But sometimes you're functional, and people talk about being a functional alcoholic and being functional everything. I think I was functionally depressed because nobody ever knew, because I never stopped. I never slowed down enough to say that I was depressed or to say that anything was impacting me.
Right.
But deep inside, I was trying to figure out ways to hide it and ways to kind of on the outside show that I was okay. I may have been tearing up inside, but I was okay on the outside. I was still doing wine crawls. I was still doing publishing stuff. I was still running and doing all this stuff, but mentally it was getting to me. I figured it out how bad it was when I was driving home one night and I was literally falling asleep at the wheel and I almost wrecked. And nobody knows this because I never really talked about it because I wasn't drunk. I hadn't been drinking or anything else. But if you know anything about sleep, you literally can die from lack of sleep faster than you can die from hunger.
Really?
Because it's it's for what it does to your brain, the ability to not rest is detrimental to you. Not sleeping is so hazardous to your health. And I think I hadn't slept for like 72 hours when that happened. And I was out, I was just hanging out with friends. And I remember it distinctly because I hadn't had anything to drink. So it wasn't like drunk driving and I fell asleep at the
Mhm.
wheel or anything else. I literally blacked out because I was so tired. And my car just kind of ran on the side of the sidewalk. And at that point, I was like, okay, I need to get a grip. I
Yeah.
really need to get a grip on my life. I started talking to a counselor about it, and she suggested that I write, which was
Mm.
very interesting.
Uh-huh.
Because I'm like, oh, you're telling me to write. That's ironic. It's what I tell everybody.
Right.
But I wrote, and I have a blog. So I was writing a little bit. I mean, I have a blog called Stop, Look, Listen on Chicago Now. So I wrote in there on my mom's birthday on August 3rd. I wrote a letter to her saying happy birthday, and I talked about the experience and everything else. Amazingly, the response I got to that was just, I couldn't believe it. I had another friend who had survived cancer, and she read it and was like, oh, I thought about my kids and how they felt going
Mm.
through with me going through this. And I had another person who had lost a parent who come to me. And so many people had come to me and lost a parent. And I was like, okay, so there's something to this writing thing. And I need to really make sure that I'm helping other people tell their story. Because
Mm.
if my 3 or 4 paragraph story help people, what can books do to people? What can sharing what's happened in your life do to somebody who you've never met? And that's
Right.
what I thought about. So that's when I kind of took a renewed interest in the publishing company and really focusing more on people telling their stories and sharing their stories. So
Yeah.
so from that birthed the Faith, Failure, Success series. So the first one we did late in 2020. I'm sorry, late in
I was gonna
2020.
say
We released
2020
this.
because I
Yeah,
have some quotes in there.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. You did
Yeah.
quotes in there. That's right. So that was the entrepreneurial journey. So we started that. And one of the things I try to do with each Faith, Failure, Success series, now we're on 3. You're going to be in 3, and we're actually going to do 4. I don't know if we're going to do any more past that, but we're doing 4 for sure. But I
Mhm.
always try to introduce new writers and
Mhm.
maybe team them with some writers who have some experience. So each time you'll see an existing author and you'll see brand new writers in there. So we're able to really introduce new writers telling their stories. So it's really been great. I think about Samantha Danielle, who was the first time author in the Faith, Failure, Success 1 series. Faith, Failure, Success 2, they were almost all new writers. So, Cinda and Latrice were both experienced, but Erica, Vanya, and Nicole was experienced as well. Erica and but Vanya and Martha first time writing, and Martha was very similar to you. She'd come to me with a story, a very deeply personal story, but I didn't want her to be intimidated by having to finish a whole book. I thought writing a chapter kind of get your feet wet, you dip your toe in the water, and you figure out if you like it, and you go swim after that with your own book. So it really is kind of um, a growth mode. It's almost like a trajectory that we put our new authors on to
Mhm.
help them and to introduce them to writing and just getting used to that process.
Mhm.
But it's made a difference. So many people have come to me and said those books have helped them.
Yeah.
So, and then, Lessons for a Little Boy was just kind of icing on the cake. Jamie had been talking about this book for at least 6 years.
Mhm.
And finally, we just put it together. And I was very, very, I don't want to say afraid, but I was very reluctant to write in that book.
Mhm.
So the first time I wrote is nothing like what you read. I mean, it was very generic and very much, glossed over and just very high level. I didn't get in the weeds about feelings or anything else. So I read it and I was like, okay, this sucks. I'm gonna write it again. I'm gonna do this. It's gonna take a minute, through some tears and some other things that I have to get through, but I'm gonna write about how I feel and sitting there talking to my younger self and saying, okay, this is your life.
Mhm.
These are the things you're gonna go through. You're gonna handle some of them well, and you're not gonna handle the other ones well, but that's gonna be okay because that's part of being human.
Mhm.
So really writing my story of hope is everybody else's story of hope. It's who can you give hope to through your story? Who
Mhm.
can you touch through your story? Who can you touch through your words, through your experiences,
Yeah.
through your gestures, through helping people, even just getting people to put quotes in the book
Mhm.
is meaningful to them. Some people were like really thankful that I allowed them to put quotes in the book, and it was
I
great.
I was one
Yeah.
of those people.
But
Yeah.
yeah, so yeah, you don't think you have a story sometimes, but you really do. And I was so busy helping other people tell theirs until I really didn't think about mine. But mine really revolves around having a purpose and helping other people realize theirs.
Mhm.
And and sometimes that's your assignment, whether you like it or not. And there were times I
Right.
didn't like it because believe me, I'd rather do wine crawls.
Right.
I'd rather just help people drink. I mean, I make people happy doing that too. So I figure it's the same difference, but no, it's not, unfortunately.
No, no, no. And I love your books. I mean, I haven't read the Lessons from the Little Boy yet. That one I got to get that one because I just finished Faith, Failure, Success, Surviving the Storm.
Surviving the
But
Storm.
what I love what Jamie did with that book. Okay. Because I am a big and more in the last probably 6 months advocate for mental health, but especially mental health.
Mhm, mhm.
Because like you said, like you wrote this little glossy, here it
Oh
is.
yeah,
And
because
you read it and you were like, well, who's that really going to help? And
right,
I think that the importance of the mental health is what is really going to help people. And that book there, I mean, you have a different realm of people going through different things in their life, but
right,
they're all, sharing their stories. That's what this is all about too. That's all I'm doing is somebody share their story so somebody else hears it and says, oh, I'm not the only one that went through something like it.
right,
Doesn't necessarily have to be the same, but
right.
something like that. So
Yes.
the thing that I like, that probably one of the best things that you said was when you were in that depression, and I know what you mean about sleeping at the wheel. My son, that happened to him too. He actually went to a ravine thing and stuff, but
Mhm.
the same thing, he was just exhausted.
Yeah.
And but you said that you knew you needed to do something and you went and saw a counselor.
Yes.
Now, so many people, I feel like, think a counselor is voodoo, you're crazy if you do. They don't realize the benefits of a counselor.
No, they don't. And
They-
it's so beneficial just to have somebody to talk to that's an impartial witness to whatever you're going through. And it's interesting because my father actually encouraged it. Which you don't always get a lot of men encouraging their sons to do that. So I have to give
Mhm.
him a lot of credit for talking about that. And actually, he shared that he had gone through counseling and he told me never be afraid to get help.
Mhm.
Never be afraid to ask for it and never be afraid to seek it out.
That's good. I like
Yeah.
that. I hope
Yeah.
everybody heard that because it's so true. So
Yeah.
true. And I say to people about counselors too, I say they're not, they're just there for one thing, mostly to listen to
To
you
listen. Yeah.
and give you some tools.
That's exactly what they do. And I mean, there's some tools I still use to this day
Yeah.
for just relaxing myself and calming myself down sometimes. And life gets so busy. And, I'm juggling quite a few balls in the air. So
Mhm.
sometimes you really have to take that breath. I'm learning that a lot more. Even this week has just been such a crazy week. So tomorrow's just a day to do nothing. um and I don't mind taking those, and I don't mind shutting down a lot more now. And I have a great team of people that work on 220 publishing, and wine crawl is kind of running itself now that I have franchisees. It forced me to think about how I was going to exist doing all of this stuff.
Mhm.
And you look at yourself and you look at all the things you have to do in your long to-do list, and you understand that you're human and you have to take a break. You have to take that stop. You have to pause. I forgot her name, but Mel Robbins, she calls it the 5-second rule. You
Yep.
take 5 seconds to breathe, and
Mhm.
sometimes in that 5 seconds you realize, okay, all of this stuff is not that important and I'm not going to get to it all, and that's going to be okay too.
Mhm.
So
Mhm.
yeah.
I was just listening to a mentor of mine the other day, and she said, you always have to have, because you have to have your balance, right? Because if you
You do.
don't, well, you're going to crash and burn.
Yeah.
But she talked
Literally,
about,
sometimes literally crash.
right, literally
Yeah.
crash,
Yeah.
unfortunately. But you have to have your, I don't know if you want to call it playtime or whatever, your personal time and your business time.
Mhm.
Because if you're focused completely on, for one thing, if you're focused completely on business, money all the time, you're going to end up a very lonely person,
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
that's what happens. Because you shut everybody out, the whole world out, and you're just focused on that. And like she said, she knows so many business people that are very wealthy, but are so lonely, it's
Mhm.
not, so you have to practice that you have to balance it out and learn how to balance
Right.
it out.
Whatever you chase, you'll get, but you may be chasing the wrong thing. You can chase the money and you'll get the money, but you kind of have to chase happiness too. You have to chase balance. You have to chase peace. So you have to really think about what you're chasing
Mhm.
and what, you know, what's the end result once you catch it. Because if you catch the money after chasing the money, you probably left a lot of people behind and a lot of, you know, a lot of happiness and a lot of times that you've missed.
Yeah.
So you really had to learn that. And once I took that attitude, things got a lot easier for me in terms of success. And I saw success from a whole different lens. You know, success is a first time author seeing their book, you know, amongst the bestseller list, or even just holding a book in their hand for the first time. You know, think about that feeling, you know, and how that feels to them to know that your story meant enough that you can get it in print and now it's here for the world to see.
Yeah. Yeah. That's great. And I love, so I really, honestly, I was just sitting here thinking, I'm like, okay, about 2 years ago, because I'm pretty sure it was right at the beginning of 2020, we probably met.
Mhm.
I feel like it was, or right around then. But I think about our purposes and our visions and our missions is pretty much the same. So I guess God was like, these two need to meet each other because they're just out here sharing stories of hope, you know, and that's, and I love, and anybody on here, these books, when I say they're incredible, they are incredible. And they are these stories that people are sharing, you know, especially this faith, failure, success, surviving the storm. Those women,
Yeah.
they went all
Yeah,
out.
those
And
are amazing stories.
yes,
That's an amazing book. Yeah,
yeah,
I knew it would be good. I handpicked everybody for that book,
yeah,
and I didn't know why at first, why I wanted that combination of women. I knew them all, you know, previously. I've known Vanya for over 20 years. I've known Martha for like at least 10, Senda for 10 plus, Erica for at least almost 10, and Nicole was already one of my authors. So all of them I knew. And just that group coming together, and Latrice as well. I've known her. We published her first two books. So that group of women and the stories that they had, and some of them I knew and some of them I didn't. So it was a learning experience for me to read it as well, to
yeah,
read some of their stories. But I just knew that was the right combination. Sometimes there's just a combination that is like, it's like putting a choir together and you get the right voices and you're singing in perfect harmony. And that book is about as perfect as it can be
yeah.
in terms of telling somebody's story. And it challenges every other faith, failure, success, because it's like, okay, this is kind of the bar now, guys. What are you going to do? You know, part three and part four authors, because you know, part two was strong. It was a very strong book. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So everybody, I would highly recommend you guys go on Amazon or wherever books are sold, right?
Yep. Everywhere books are sold. Yep.
Yeah.
So yeah, it is on sale. So yeah, please get it. Thank
Yeah.
you.
And I'm so excited about reading lessons for the little boy. I mean, I don't know if is it really a man's book or is it?
It's really a book for everyone.
Okay.
If women are interested in mental health and how it impacts men, there's
Mhm.
some amazing stories in there. If you're interested, if you're a young man and want to just kind of understand about life and what it means to be a man to a totally diverse and different group of men, I would say read it there. If you've had loss, and that loss could be loss of a loved one, that could be it could be divorce, it could be a lot of things. I mean, one of the authors was going through a divorce when he wrote it, so his perspective is amazing. You know, people talk about family in there. So there's 13 men, 13 different, very different stories, but 13 very valuable lessons to learn from each one.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, I'm excited to read that one too, but I'm excited for the next Faith, Failure, and Success coming out in the summer. Is that when it's coming out?
Yeah, we're targeting the summer. So yes, which will be featuring you. So yes, it's gonna be good.
I'm excited. I'm excited about that. So I just, you know, I want to thank you for jumping on here with me today. I've been waiting. I know I messaged you a few weeks ago and I'm like, so when are you gonna be on Hope?
I was like, I don't have anything to tell, but okay, that's fine. I'll do it. So I'll try to keep it interesting. Hopefully we won't put your viewers to sleep.
You did not put my viewers to sleep, I guarantee, and you did have something to tell. So, and I know I'm going to get Keisha on here too. And I just want to, honestly, I want to thank you for what you do, but also I have to thank you because I have at least maybe 15 of my podcasts are from people that I met through you. I mean, it's like you
That's
say,
good.
we've done the emails and stuff. So I just want to thank
Mhm.
you for that because it really means a
Absolutely.
lot to me. And I also know that it means a lot to the people that you've referred because they all speak so highly of you and are all blessed to know you. That's what I hear every single time.
I paid them off.
Yeah,
No,
I know. Well, I heard that too, but I wasn't going to share that, Glenn. No, everybody really has the utmost respect for you and what you're doing is amazing. And I just can't wait. I just love being on this journey with you and I just can't wait to see it grow. I might be swinging through Chicago when I head back to Ohio in a few weeks. So
okay,
I'll
let me know. We'll see you. Yeah, we'd love to see you.
Yeah, that'd be fun. So is there
Yeah,
anything you
no,
want to add?
no, I just want to say thank you for all that you do. Hope is such a broad word, but you truly give people hope and you allow people to tell their story. So you're right. We're doing the same thing. You do it through your podcast. I do it through books, but it's extremely meaningful. The authors are extremely grateful. All the people that you've talked to are just extremely grateful that they get to tell their story and you give them another platform. This is so important what you do. So I think your story in itself is inspirational. I know your story, and I'm sure a lot of your listeners do, but the others that don't, they're going to learn a lot more about it in a few months.
Yeah.
And I'm excited for that. I'm excited for you. So I'm really grateful to you as well for having this platform.
Thank you, Glenn. Well, thank you so much, everybody, for jumping on Hope. I hope everybody has an amazing day. Thanks again, Glenn.
Thank you.